All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on Gautam Adani.
Okay.
I think a lot of people have been seeing his name in the news, and
yeah, a lot of news.
And yeah, there's a lot to unpack, so let's get right to it.
Right.
So Gautam Adani, born June 24th, 1962, in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India, and he's the founder and chairman of the Adani Group.
Right.
And if you don't know, the Adani Group is this huge multinational conglomerate that's especially known for port development and operations in India.
Yeah, they are really a major player when it comes to ports. As of January 17th, 2025, he was ranked as the second richest person in Asia.
Wow.
And 25th wealthiest globally, with a net worth of over $60 billion.
It's hard to even imagine that much money.
It's a lot. Yeah. And back in 2022, Time magazine even recognized his global influence by including him in their list of the 100 most influential people worldwide.
Yeah, he's really made a name for himself. And, you know, when we talk about the Adani Group, it's not just ports, although they're a huge part of it.
Right.
Their reach goes way beyond that into power generation, renewable energy, airports, even media.
Yeah, you see their name everywhere.
So in this deep dive, we really want to dig into the key parts of Gautam Adani's journey, you know, understand the controversies that have kind of followed him throughout his career.
Right.
And paint a clear picture of where he stands today based on all the information that we have.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
So Gautam Adani's story, it starts with kind of humble beginnings, right? He was born into a Gujarati Jain family, one of 8 siblings.
Right.
His parents had moved from Tharad, which is also in Gujarat, and his father was a small textile merchant. So it's pretty amazing to think about where he came from and where he is now.
It really is a remarkable journey when you consider that.
Now, when it comes to his education, he attended Sheth Chimanlal Naginda's Vidyalaya in Ahmedabad, but he ended up leaving in 1978 before he even finished.
Oh, wow.
And what's interesting is that we found this article from 2023 where he actually mentioned that he regretted not completing his education.
Huh. It makes you wonder how things might have turned out differently if he had stayed in school.
Yeah, you really do wonder what path he might have taken.
Right.
But that same year, he decided to move to Mumbai as a teenager.
Wow.
And he started working as a diamond sorter for Mahindra Brothers.
Diamond sorting. That's a far cry from building ports.
Yeah, it's not something you'd immediately connect, you know, with running a massive conglomerate.
Yeah, you don't usually think of those two things going together.
But it seems like his first real experience in managing a business came in 1981 when his older brother, Mahasukbhai Adani, bought a plastics unit in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And Gautam took on the responsibility of running it, and this was his introduction to the world of global trade, specifically through imports of polyvinyl chloride, or PVC.
So that was his first taste of international business.
Yeah, and it looks like those early experiences managing that plastics unit and navigating those initial global trades really gave him a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 1988, he established Adani Exports, which we now know as Adani Enterprises. And this became the holding company for everything that would grow into the massive Adani Group.
Right.
And in the beginning, they were focused on trading agricultural commodities like grains and oilseeds and also power-related commodities.
Interesting.
And then things really started to change with the economic liberalization policies that India put in place in 1991.
Yeah, that was a pivotal time for the Indian economy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a big deal. Those reforms really opened up the country's economy, right?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
really was a game changer. The liberalization, especially the opening up of trade and the reduction in all those bureaucratic hurdles, really created a fantastic environment for ambitious entrepreneurs like Adani, who were quick to seize those new opportunities, especially in import-export.
Yeah, it really leveled the playing field in a lot of ways.
It did. And this period allowed him to significantly expand his trading operations, moving into metals, textiles, and a much wider range of agricultural products.
So we've seen his journey from textiles to commodities, but now let's talk about how he really made his mark expanding into infrastructure.
All right.
And a major development here was him getting into the port sector.
Okay.
In 1994, the government of Gujarat made the decision to outsource the management of Mundra Port.
Interesting.
And Adani saw the potential there and managed to secure the contract in 1995.
Wow. That was a huge win for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a turning point for the Adani Group, marking their entry into large-scale infrastructure development.
Really put them on the map.
And that same year, they established the first jetty at Mundra Port.
Okay.
And later on, all the operations were consolidated under Adani Ports and SEZ, which is APSEZ. And today, they are the biggest private multi-port operator in India.
That's impressive.
It is. And Mundra Port itself is the largest private sector port in India, with this massive capacity to handle around 210 million tons of cargo annually.
It's hard to fathom that scale.
Yeah, it's a logistical giant.
It really is.
But he didn't stop at ports in 1996. He founded Adani Power. And again, we see this pattern of rapid growth.
Right.
Adani Power has become the biggest private thermal power producer in India, with a generating capacity of over 4,600 megawatts.
So he had his hands in both transportation through the ports and power generation for all sorts of industries.
Right. It's like he was creating this interconnected system for economic growth.
Yeah, he was building a whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And then between 2009 and 2012, the Adani Group made some big moves internationally. They acquired Abbott Point Port in Australia and the Carmichael Coal Mine in Queensland.
Those were some bold moves going global like that.
Yeah, especially in the resource sector.
It showed a real global ambition.
It did, and his personal wealth grew right alongside these expansions. In February 2022, he became the richest person in Asia, overtaking Mukesh Ambani.
Wow.
And by August of that same year, Fortune magazine had him ranked as the third richest person in the world.
That's a meteoric rise.
It really is. Shows you how fast his business empire was growing.
It does.
And he also started venturing into some future-focused sectors like renewable energy.
Interesting.
In May 2020, Adani won what was considered the world's largest solar bid from SECI, valued at $6 billion US.
That's a huge deal.
It is, this massive project has Adani Green taking on an 8,000 megawatt photovoltaic project, with Adani Solar adding another 2,000 megawatts of manufacturing capacity.
So he was diversifying into a crucial sector.
Right. He was making a clear move towards renewable energy.
Makes sense given the global shift towards sustainability.
Exactly. And then in September 2020, he went and acquired a 74% stake in Mumbai International Airport.
Wow.
Which is the second busiest airport in India after Delhi.
So now he had a major piece of the aviation infrastructure.
Right, another crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And then in May 2022, the Adani family acquired Ambuja Cements and its subsidiary ACC from the Wholesome Group for a whopping $10.5 billion.
That's a significant acquisition.
It was a big move that really expanded their footprint in the building materials sector, which is vital for India's development.
So we see this consistent push for growth and diversification across all these different sectors in the Indian economy and even beyond.
Right.
And then there's his move into media, which really caught people's attention.
Right.
In August 2022, AMG Media Networks Limited, which is part of the Adani Group, announced that they wanted to buy RRPR Holding,
Okay.
which owned about 29.18% of NDTV, which is that big national news broadcaster in India.
Yeah, a lot of people know NDTV.
Right. And they also launched an open offer for an additional 26%.
Wow.
But the interesting thing here is that NDTV themselves came out and said that this was all done without the consent of the channel's founders.
So it wasn't exactly a friendly takeover?
It sounds like it, and this move really brought up a lot of concerns about editorial independence, particularly because of Adani's perceived close relationship with Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, that connection has been a topic of much discussion.
It has, and by December 2022, the Adani Group had become the largest shareholder in NDTV, essentially taking control.
So that acquisition really put the Adani Group under the microscope even more than before.
It definitely added a layer of scrutiny to their activities.
So we've talked about this rapid expansion and diversification, but the Adani story is not without its controversies.
Right.
And let's go back to 2002. There was this incident where he was actually arrested by Delhi police.
What happened?
It was related to a cheating complaint filed against him by MS Shoes.
Oh, wow.
But the non-bailable warrant was withdrawn the very next day after they apparently reached some sort of compromise.
So it was short-lived, but definitely noteworthy.
Yeah, it definitely raised some eyebrows.
It did.
Then in 2012, the Serious Fraud Investigation Office, which is India's white-collar crime investigation agency, filed a charge sheet against him and some others alleging cheating and criminal conspiracy related to some share transactions.
That's serious.
It is. And while a local court discharged him in 2014, that decision was overturned by a Mumbai Sessions Court in 2020.
So those legal issues dragged on for years.
Yeah, they did, but those legal challenges were kind of happening in the background while this bigger issue of his perceived close relationship with Prime Minister Narendra Modi was unfolding.
Right.
And this has been going on especially since Modi became Prime Minister.
Yeah, there have been a lot of accusations of cronyism, haven't there?
Yeah, a lot of critics say that Adani's firms have benefited from this relationship by getting government contracts and favorable policies.
It's hard to ignore that perception.
And it's worth noting that back in 2012, even before Modi became prime minister, a government auditor accused him when he was chief minister of Gujarat of providing low-cost fuel to Adani and other businesses.
Oh, wow. So that goes back even further.
Yeah, it does. But both Adani and Modi have consistently denied these allegations.
Right, of course they would.
But these allegations have really shaped how the public views them, and it sparked a lot of debate.
It's definitely been a hot topic.
But things really heated up in January 2023 when Hindenburg Research released their report.
Yeah, that was a bombshell.
The report was called Adani Group, how the world's third richest man is pulling the largest con in corporate history.
Quite a title.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic, and they accused Adani of widespread stock manipulation and fraud.
So what happened after the report came out?
Well, Adani Group stocks took a big hit. They reportedly lost something like $45 billion in market value.
Wow, that's a huge drop.
Yeah, and his ranking in global wealth indexes also plummeted.
It must have been a major blow.
It was, and the report also raised concerns about the Adani Group's debt levels and said they were on shaky financial ground.
So it wasn't just about the stock manipulation.
Right, it was a broader attack on their financial stability.
And the timing of the report, right before Adani Enterprises' follow-on public offering, was pretty suspicious.
Yeah, the Adani Group's chief financial officer even publicly questioned the timing of it all.
So what did the Adani Group do?
They fired back. They called the report malicious and said it was full of misinformation and baseless allegations.
So they completely denied everything.
They did. And they even said they were considering taking legal action against Hindenburg Research.
So it became a very public fight.
It did.
It's interesting how the Supreme Court of India got involved in all of this.
Yeah, they stepped in to try and resolve the dispute over the Adani Group stocks that stemmed from the Hindenburg report.
So what did they decide?
Well, in January 2024, they dismissed requests for a special investigation team, or a probe, by the Central Bureau of Investigation.
Okay.
But they did tell SEBI, which is India's regulatory body for securities and commodity markets, to investigate whether the Hindenburg report had broken any securities laws or hurt investors.
So they didn't completely dismiss the concern.
Right. They acknowledged that there was a need to look into it.
And it didn't end there, did it?
No. In August 2023, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which is OCCRP, released their own report.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And they alleged that the Adani Group had been using individuals and front companies to manipulate their stock prices.
Wow, so even more accusations of wrongdoing.
Yeah, and they specifically named two individuals, Nasser Ali Shaban Ali and Cheng Cheng-ling.
So they were directly implicating people.
They were. And then in November 2024, things escalated even further with a big legal development in the United States.
What happened?
The U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn announced a 5-count criminal indictment against Gautam Adani and several of his executives.
Wow.
And the charges were serious bribery.
Bribery, that's a big deal.
They allege that over $250 million in bribes were paid to Indian government officials to secure contracts in several states, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jammu, and Kashmir, and Tamil Nadu.
It's a lot of states.
It is. And the indictment also claimed that this bribery scheme was hidden from American investors through false statements.
So they were accused of misleading investors.
Right. And all of this while they were raising $3 billion in loans and bonds in the U.S.
So this U.S. indictment really upped the stakes.
It did. And the impact was immediate. Reports said that Adani's net worth dropped by about $12 billion after the news broke. And there have been international consequences, too. Kenya has decided to cancel over $2.5 billion worth of deals with the Adani Group.
Wow, that's a big setback.
It is. The deals were for developing Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and some energy projects.
And they cited the U.S. indictment as the reason.
Yeah, and now there are concerns in Kenya about potential breach of contract costs.
It really shows you how interconnected things are globally.
It does.
You know, apart from all these major controversies, there are a few other interesting events in Adani's life that are worth mentioning.
Okay, like what?
Well, back in January 1998, he and a business associate were kidnapped.
Kidnapped?
Yeah, and held for ransom.
Wow, that's terrifying.
It is. 2 people were accused, but they were later acquitted in 2018 after Adani and his associate didn't show up for depositions in court, even after being summoned multiple times.
That's bizarre.
It is, but it's a reminder. that even with all this wealth and power, these are still individuals who face real-world dangers.
It's a scary thought.
It is. And then there's that time he was at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai during those horrific terrorist attacks in 2008.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that.
He was there for dinner when the attack started, and he had to hide inside the hotel. He managed to get out safely the next day, but it must have been a truly harrowing experience.
It's hard to imagine going through something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But shows a different side to him, a more human side.
It does, and we should also mention his philanthropic work.
Right. His wife, Preeti Adani, is the chairperson of the Adani Foundation, which is the group's philanthropic arm.
And they've done some pretty significant things, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. For example, they recently provided free meals to people attending the Maha Kumbh Mela in early 2025.
That's pretty amazing.
They have a massive undertaking, and it showed a commitment to giving back to the community.
Definitely.
And of course, family plays a big role in all of this. Gautam Adani married Preeti Vora in 1986, and they have 2 sons.
Okay.
Karan is currently the CEO of Adani Ports and SEZ. So he's leading a crucial part of the business.
Right, following his father's footsteps.
And Jeet heads up Adani Airports and also leads Adani Digital Labs. So the next generation is already involved in the group's diverse operations.
That's interesting to see that continuation.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that Gautam Adani's story is incredibly complex and multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone from relatively humble beginnings to becoming a global business titan. But along the way, he's been caught up in some serious controversies, all while operating in this ever-changing and often challenging political and economic landscape.
Yeah, we've seen how rapidly he expanded his empire across so many different sectors, the huge impact of those reports from Hindenburg Research and OCCRP that raised some serious red flags, and then that recent U.S. bribery indictment and the immediate consequences it had on his wealth and the Adani Group's international deals.
Exactly. It's been a wild ride.
It has, and it makes you think, what does Gautam Adani's journey, with all its triumphs and controversies, tell us about how big business, political power, and global finance all intersect in the 21st century?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And what are the long-term implications, not just for his own massive business empire, but for India's economy as a whole and its place in the global financial system?
It's a lot to ponder.
It is. It's a story that's still unfolding, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Definitely a lot to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.